Hello there, welcome to the Holiday Inn Cruise Clinic. I'm Phil Hilton and this is the only programme on television dedicated to answering your holiday, cruise and travel related questions. If you have a question, query or a dilemma about your holiday or cruise, here's how to get in touch with us. Our website is www.holidayincruisechannel.co.uk. Just go to the clinic page, click on there and send us your questions to the website. You can also email us directly, clinic@holidayincruisechannel.co.uk, or write to us directly by post as well to the Holiday Inn Cruise Channel, Cavendish House, Brighton Road, Liverpool, L22 5NG. Now, what can I tell you about cruise holidays? Well, year on year, more and more people are taking to the seas. In fact, a whopping 1.7 million of us took a cruise holiday last year. It is, in fact, the only type of holiday that's currently growing in popularity. But with so much choice and so many options available, what cruise line and what cruise ship is right for you? Well, Royal Caribbean International have been making waves on the ocean since 1968. And with an impressive fleet of 22 modern ships, there certainly could be a cruise line that could offer an exciting holiday opportunity. Well, I'm delighted to be joined in the studio today by Angela Hall from Royal Caribbean International. Angela, welcome along today.
Hello, welcome.
It sounds like a very glamorous company to work for, Royal Caribbean International, one of the biggest, I would imagine.
It is. It's a fantastic company to work for. I've been in the travel industry for 25 years and always aspired to work for somebody like Royal Caribbean, and I'm lucky enough to do it now. So it's a really, really great company to work for.
Well, I'm sure you do enjoy your work, and I'd be interested to know where you've been and in your travel industry work as well as being on cruise ships. Tell us about some of the places that Royal Caribbean go to.
Pretty much everywhere, actually. Everything from the north, the Arctic Circle, right down to Antarctica. And then east to west. Latterly, we're going more into Asia. It's becoming quite popular to cruise around Asia. South America, Brazil, we have a big programme in Brazil. Obviously, a huge amount of cruises in Europe. We have 11 ships there this summer. And the Caribbean, of course, for our name's sake. We also do some beautiful cruises to New England, Alaska, Australia, circumnavigation cruises of Australia and New Zealand. And also takes in some of the Pacific Islands. So
fantastic.
Take your pick.
Yeah, really. I mean, you've got a good itinerary to choose from there. Yeah. All presumably experienced by your good self?
Not all of them. Obviously, been in the industry for a while. I have been on various different cruise lines. And obviously, working at Royal Caribbean, I've tasted some of the Royal Caribbean cruises as well.
I should think so too.
But all interesting. I think the nice thing is that you can take in more than one destination. Without having to pack and unpack. I think that's one of the big things for me.
Absolutely. It's a very nice, lazy way to spend your holiday, isn't it?
It is,
without being embarrassed about it.
Exactly. And I think if you're cruising around Europe, particularly, you can take in some of the really beautiful destinations of Europe. You know, you can do Rome, Pisa, Livorno, various other places. If you were to fly between those places and having to pack and unpack as well, the cost would be a lot more than a cruise.
Of course, and you only have to go through security once, really, don't you, when you go on board?
Absolutely.
So not like plane travel at all.
Absolutely, yeah.
I like the idea about Europe is that you can go to a different country and it's a completely different culture quite often within just a couple of hours journey.
And it's strange because you don't feel that. I think if you're getting on an aeroplane and off an aeroplane, going through the airport, you're getting slowly accustomed to the changing culture. Whereas with a cruise ship, you're there and it's instant and you're in the middle of it and that's it. And you don't have to go through all the rigmarole of, like you say, going through the airports and customs and things. So, yeah, it's a good way of experiencing a lot of cultures in a short space of time. All
right, let me turn the spotlight on you just a little bit more now, Angela. Why should people come to cruise with you as opposed to any other cruising company? And we get to speak to them all on this programme.
Lots of different reasons, really. Royal Caribbean as a brand are really good for new to cruise. And this is really where we position ourselves in the marketplace. If you've never cruised before and you're a little bit nervous, I think Royal Caribbean is quite relaxing on board. I think it's very easy to get into the flow of how things work on a cruise ship. We're not stuffy, we're quite laid back. And I think that that's why new to cruise like us. Once they've come on once, they do tend to come back, which is always a really good thing for us. And then, of course, we've got other brands that you can promote through from Royal Caribbean. So I think for new to cruise, it's fantastic. For families, we've got such crazy innovations on board the ships. I think there's something for everybody on board. But interestingly, don't make the mistake of thinking that it is just a family ship, because we have done some recent surveys and it's not so much as we think. There's a lot of older people on board our ships as well, and I've done some cruise shows with the public and was very surprised at actually the older people still like to party, and they can do that on a Royal Caribbean ship. But equally, if you want to sit in a library for the day, or you want to stay in your stateroom for the day and have room service, all of that's available as well. So I think the nice thing is that we appeal to a lot of different people. You can party as much as you like, you can have peace and tranquility as much as you like, but at least the choice is there. So if you've got a lot of multi-generation families where you've got grandma and granddad right down to the tiny tot 6 months old, we actually cater for all of them on board. So that's a good reason.
Fantastic. So I'm going to be in good hands then for my first cruise holiday if I choose to come with you. And because you're very good, not just Royal Caribbean, but almost every cruise line that I've spoken to on this programme are very good with the customer service ethic of remembering your name, remembering what you like to drink, where you've been before, and when you've holidayed with us before, that kind of thing.
That's
Very
right.
good at that.
Yeah, they are. And I think I've experienced that myself. You know, I've been on a ship for a day, and within that day, you know, when you sit down at your table for the evening meal, they already know what you want to drink. They know that if you have a food allergy or a preference to certain, you know, if you like olives before your dinner, then they bring the olives for you. And it goes right down to the children as well. It's not just about the adults. They do remember the children.
A lot of people might not want to go cruising when there are children around. Is there a particular time when it's good to go if you're a family, or good to go if you haven't got a family and want to get away?
It's a really funny thing, the family thing. One of the sayings that I'll always remember is somebody came to me and complained. They took their child on a Royal Caribbean cruise in the middle of the school holidays and complained that they never saw them. So don't be fooled into thinking that, you know, when you're on board in July and August, which is during the school holidays, so it's obviously when we have more children on board, don't think that you're going to be crowded with children, because the children's club is so good. And I have to say, I've been in and looked around. They have their own nightclub, and you just don't see them. You absolutely don't see them. And in the evenings, something that we do now in the main dining room, if you want your children to dine with you, after 45 minutes, it is possible to arrange for somebody to come and take them away. So if you're mum and dad and you're at the dinner table and you want to enjoy a glass of wine, the children are now bored because they've been sat at the dinner table for 45 minutes. Actually, the children's club will come and take them back to the children's club so you can continue your meal in peace.
Brilliant, brilliant. And from a safety point of view, obviously everybody's vetted, well looked after. There's a ratio of a good number of staff to children.
Yeah, they're all really, really well qualified. Something that was a really good thing. I took a group of travel agents on board a ship to show them around the other day. They wouldn't actually let us into the children's area because obviously you have to be CRB checked and go through all of these checks. They actually wouldn't even let us in so that I could show people around the children's area. And I was really proud that happened while I was on board. So
absolutely.
And it's all secure, all well looked after, all the safety facilities are there for them, and it's just a really, really good kids club.
Now, you mentioned that customer service and kind of focus group type things where you ask people's opinion and get what they like to do and what they've enjoyed in the past is quite important to you. I hear that quite a lot from some of the cruise companies. What is it recently that people have been asking you to improve? And you've taken on board a lot of improvements, haven't you, with your ships?
Yes, we have. Lots of things. We do pride ourselves in the feedback cards. We get the comment cards after every cruise, and a lot of the things that people like on one ship we've then put on other ships. If there's a customer service issue, it's taken straight to the top and it's dealt with very seriously if there is something that we're lacking. I like to think that we do look after disabled people as well on board. You know, we have Braille on all the lift signs and things like that. So our customer service, we really pride ourselves on because it is very good. But anything that people want, it's there. And if we can improve in any way, you know, obviously we will.
Of course, so it's good to know that the comment cards you do fill in go somewhere and somebody does read them and take the information on board. I mean, we get inundated with your questions, and thank you for that. You know, we really appreciate you emailing us and writing to us. But we tend to get a lot of people asking very similar questions. Will I get seasick? You know, can I go to my cruise without getting on a plane, for example, like that? What are people asking you? What are the most common questions you think people are coming to you with?
Very similar sort of thing, particularly with transatlantic crossings. I think people are a little bit worried about being seasick. The big one that I get a lot is, do I have to dress up? And I think that people do have this fear of having to be in a ball gown, particularly men in suits. You know, do I have to get into a suit and tie every night for my evening meal? Which of course you don't. Again, that's something that you can opt in and out of, and I think that's the same on most cruise lines now. There is a relaxed atmosphere on board as well. That's one of the biggies. The seasick thing, I think a lot of our ships are so big now that you struggle to feel them move.
You don't tend to feel it, do you?
No, you don't. I have been seasick once on a transatlantic crossing, but it was in Hurricane Wilma. So in an extreme circumstance like that,
you've got to ask the question, why were you there?
Well, yeah, it was work. but you can get so many things now. You can get the wristbands that you can wear. If there is an extreme circumstance, then we do have doctors on board, and they, on that particular cruise that I was on, they were doing injections to stop you being ill on board.
Right.
But if you do suffer from that, don't go into the bowels of the ship.
Yeah.
You know, book the cabin according to how you feel.
Yeah, and there's plenty of help for you if you are feeling a little bit under the weather.
There is.
Okay, brilliant. Angela, stay right there because we're going to take a quick break now, but I want to come back and talk to you about where you're going to go and what kind of packages people can get from you and some of the other questions that people do come and talk to you about. But just stay there for now. Let me remind you about our handy cruise guides. Maybe we've whetted your appetite, Angela and myself, this morning about how to get on board and how to take your new to cruising experience. We have our first time guide to cruise holidays and our family guide to cruise holidays as well. They're both available absolutely free of charge. All you have to do to grab a copy of one or both is to give us a call on 0871 423 4444. Calls will cost you 10p a minute from a BT landline, and calls from other networks and mobiles may vary. You can also request copies through our website, www.holidayandcruisechannel.co.uk. One of the best ways of having a look at what else we're doing and getting a copy of the guides as well. So while you're doing that, we'll take a quick break. See you back here in just a few minutes. Hello there, welcome back to the Holiday and Cruise Clinic. Today we're cruising with the big boys on board Royal Caribbean International. But before we go back to my guest, Angela, here in the studio, just let me remind you that if you have a question about cruising, visas, anything to do with your holiday this year or travel, here's how to get in touch with us. Our website is www.holidayandcruisechannel.co.uk. It's a great resource if you're travelling or cruising. If you go to the clinic page, click on there, send us your questions to us online through the website. You can also email us directly, clinic@holidayandcruisechannel.co.uk, or write to us by post as well to the Holiday and Cruise Channel, Cavendish House, Brighton Road, Liverpool, L22 5NG. Angela Hall from Royal Caribbean International is still with me. Angela, we're talking about some exotic destinations that I want to learn a bit more about. But let's talk about your ships first of all.
Okay.
They're some of the biggest ones on the ocean, aren't they? And you just spent a lot of money on them too.
Yes, we have. Yeah, we have got two of the biggest in the world, which is Oasis and Allure of the Seas. They are huge, but fantastic. Really, really beautiful ships with crazy innovations that we are actually spreading fleet-wide now.
Now, when you say crazy, is this because some of the passengers have been asking for this, or you've decided it's a good idea?
Well, you know, if you can, why not? You know, and it's all about part of the holiday experience. So, you know, people do think, what am I going to do on board a ship for a week? You know, if they don't want to do all the excursions and you've got days at sea, what do you do to entertain people? So, you know, we're famous for the flow riders and the climbing walls, which are on a lot of our ships now. But Oasis and Allure of the Seas gave us the chance to try some different things as well because of the size of the ships. We had more space, so we could put some things on, and we have a merry-go-round on Oasis and Allure.
A carousel kind of thing? A
carousel,
wow. Yeah,
in the middle of the ship. We've got a zip line. Because the ship is so big, it gives us space to use the air as well. So we have a zip line. There's a fantastic show at the rear of the ship. It's a high diving platform, and they do beautiful shows in the evening on there. So it's an alternative entertainment venue, really. There's a bar on board which actually rises through the ship out into one of the open decks and then sinks back down into the ship.
Oh, really? What, like the old organ at the cinema?
Yes,
used to do.
Same kind of thing.
Not that I remember it, of course.
But that's it, and it's all about, you know, if you can, then why not? So, and you know, that used to be the slogan, the nation of why not. So, that some of the things are more popular than others, and we're going through this revitalisation programme at the moment. So some of the older ships are being brought up to date. So we've had a look at what's worked on the newer ships, and we've reintroduced that into some of the older ships, as well as giving them a refurb anyway. But we've spent $300 million on bringing the ships up to date. So you can imagine it's a fantastic programme.
Expensive to keep going with the upkeep of these things. And also, from a creative ideas point of view, it must be difficult to get inspiration because there's a competitive market out there, isn't it? As we were talking about earlier, it's going up and up and up each year. So how do you continue to entertain people?
Well, we've got a fantastic people that create these things for us. And, you know, when you first look at them, you think, surely that can't be done on board a ship. And I think that spurs them on, actually, to make it, to really make it work. But one of the interesting things, I was with a group of people a few weeks ago, Joe Public, you know, they were probably aged between 55 and 70, and they'd come along to a cruise afternoon that I was doing. And I was talking about the flow rider and the climbing wall. And I said, you know, I don't want you to think that that's all you can do on board our ships, because I know that the television adverts that you see in the brochures all have a picture of flow riders and climbing walls. And at the end of the presentation, a lady came up to me, she was 73, and she said, I don't know why you don't talk about the flow riders. She said, it's all I do when I'm on your ship. And this lady goes on a flow rider, and she only goes on one of our ships with a flow rider because she likes to boogie board.
Well, I think she's the kind of person we'd like to talk to on this channel, actually.
Absolutely. So it's horses for courses.
Let me get straight. A flow rider is like
it's a surf simulator.
Okay.
Yeah, it is I've never done it myself.
I was going to ask.
Well, it was in public, you see, and it's not something. If I had the ship to myself, I don't want to disgrace myself. Because you go and you watch all these people that are fantastic at it, you know, and then I just thought, no, if I'm not up to that standard, I don't want to do it. But you can have lessons.
So there'll be something online for people to see it, or in a brochure, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Go and have a look. Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay, well, all your ships are being sorted out now. That's wonderful. There's a lot of work just been undertaken to get them looking fantastic now. Some of the places that particular favourites of places that people like to go to, then, do you think?
Well, it depends where you come from. The Americans obviously love the Caribbean. They do come over to Europe a lot, but you'll find them doing the more traditional cruises. They want to take in Rome and some of the more cultural sites. We have 3 ships out of the UK next year. At the moment we have 2, but we're bringing in another ship out of Southampton. So we've got new itineraries. Independence of the Seas has been in Southampton for a while, and feedback, you know, we were talking about feedback earlier. People say they love the ship, but they want the itineraries to change. So we've brought Adventure of the Seas in for next year. So we've got 25 new itineraries. So you can do the Canaries, you can do the Med, she's also doing France, and we're doing some of the Scandinavia and Russia itineraries as well.
Wow.
We also have another ship based out of Harwich, which just concentrates on Northern Europe. So you do Scandinavia and Russia, but the one that I particularly like is the one that goes up to Iceland and does an overnight in Iceland.
Fabulous. So. Yeah, because you were saying a little earlier that Scandinavia and Russia is the new name for the Baltics, basically.
Yes, it used to be
Baltic.
Baltic.
We can't say Baltic anymore because people think it's too cold.
I think it's a northern thing, that the word Baltic means it's cold outside. So how can you tempt somebody onto a cruise when it's called Baltics? When obviously in Scandinavia and Russia in the summer it's warmer than in the UK.
Yes, well, it's not difficult to be warmer than the UK in a lot of instances. So that's why a holiday is such a good idea.
Yeah, indeed.
So that's a good one. Is it right to say, Angela, that if you look at a brochure and you say, well, fancy going for a cruise off Brazil, it's going to be full of Brazilians, and Russian is going to be full of Russia is going to be full of Russians? It doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way.
Okay.
I will say that cruises, obviously, out of Southampton will have more Brits on board than Americans, but it does depend where you go, and there is a balance. So if you go to the Caribbean, you might find that there's more Americans on there. If you go out of Southampton, you'll find that there's more Brits on there. But actually, when you're on board, it's not that noticeable because the culture on board remains the same.
And half the holiday is, as well as going to these wonderful destinations, having a great time on the ship, meeting people. That's half the holiday, I would think.
Absolutely, but you're not forced to. Again, this is something, we're talking about the fears that some people have. If you eat in the main dining room, you have 3 choices. You can do an early sitting or a late sitting. Generally, you're taken to a table and you're probably sharing with other people. If you're a shy couple and you want to be on your own, you can do what's called My Time dining. and you're seated in a different area of the dining room, and you can choose every night if you want to sit on a table of 10 or you want a table of 2 just for the 2 of you. You can do that.
Fabulous. My mum just came back from a cruise recently, and she went away for 3 weeks, and before she went away she says, I'll probably not go away for this length of time again, and now she wants to go on another cruise about 2 weeks after coming back. She absolutely loved it. She went on her own and she had a fantastic time, and I think it doesn't matter with which company you go to, does
No,
it?
it doesn't, because as I've said before, you can dip in and out of the activities, and there's absolutely nothing wrong. If you're on your own, it's probably the safest holiday to go on.
Absolutely. Now, if you are recently married, for example, or you want to save a bit of money before you go, perhaps buy some packages, things like that, before you book your cruise, or whilst you book your cruise before you're there, you can do that, can't you?
Absolutely. All the shore excursions are pre-bookable, so you can spend your time leading up to the cruise, flicking through the book and seeing what you want to do, and they're all pre-bookable. The other thing that we do is called a cruise tour. One of the popular places for this is Alaska, because it's a huge destination, and obviously if you go in by ship, you only do the coastal part, and it's a shame to go all that way and not actually go into the interior of the country. So these are actual holidays that you book before you go. So it's not an excursion from the ship. You would actually do a week's holiday as well as the cruise. And that can all be booked with Royal Caribbean. So very easy, very flexible, and obviously there's a whole world out there, so you don't want to
absolutely
just do the edge.
Certainly. And what do people tend to be most interested in getting before that they go? For example, I'm just thinking of some of the questions that people send us with regard to, you know, perhaps they think, oh, I might save a bit of money and take my own booze with me, for example. Not a great idea, is it?
No, not a good idea. It's something that you can't do. But what we have done is we've introduced drink packages. So on a few of the ships, we're just piloting it at the moment, you can actually buy a drinks package. You can't buy it before you go on holiday, but you can buy it as soon as you get on board the ship.
Okay.
So for as little as, say, $45 a day, you can book a beer and wine package, which means that you have, that's it, paid for the whole holiday. And that's per person per day, but you have both people sharing a cabin have to be on the package. So we'll see how that goes, and maybe that's something that we could roll out fleet-wide.
Sure, and it's always an interesting question, isn't it, about the age of people, isn't it, for having a drink? You know, you know, it seems to be getting older and older in the supermarket this time. Every time I go in, I'm thinking I'm slightly closer to the the drinking age than I was when I was here last time.
Yeah, I think because we're an American company, the drink age has always been 21. And this has been an issue because, I mean, you can get married at 18, but you can't buy a drink on board. So we have looked at this, and again, we are making changes. Independence of the Seas, the drinking age has already been reduced to 18 because obviously the majority of people on board are ex-UK. And I think around Europe, Australia and South America, it's also been reduced to 18 on some ships.
And something that I think we ought to just sort out is the smoking policy, because if you go, even if you go to Italy or something, smoking in a restaurant and a bar is still quite the regular thing, whereas in the UK we've sort of not used to that as much anymore. We see people huddling in a shed outside now.
It's amazing how quick that you adapt to that, isn't it? Because I remember going into pubs and my clothes and hair smelling.
They used to stink,
and I've got used to coming home and not having that now, and it's really nice. But you do notice it actually when you're right, when you go abroad. So what we've done is it's not a fleet-wide policy. So it's down to the captain of each ship. But what we try to do is we have one side of the ship is okay for smoking, one side isn't. You can smoke on your balcony if you have a private balcony, but generally inside the ship there are no smoking areas. Occasionally smoking is allowed in the casinos, and I think in one of the concierge lounges, but it's not a fleet-wide policy, but you will be able to smoke on board.
Okay, brilliant, Angela. Thank you very much for telling us about Royal Caribbean today. And just to give you a little brief insight into our different guides, if you want a copy of one or both, 0871 423 4444. Calls cost 10p a minute from a BT landline, and calls from other networks and mobiles may vary. Also look at our website, www.holidayandcruisechannel.co.uk. And that's all we have time for on today's edition of the Holiday and Cruise Clinic. My thanks again to Angela Hall from Royal Caribbean International. Most of all, thanks to you for watching. I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.